Hey everybody, Off the Mic Sports Network here, another edition of Off the Top Rope. AEW Dynamite Beach Break, kind of a meh show. The main event itself was interesting. I mean, John Moxley bled buckets, shocker. And the ending of this show was certainly something. I'm not sure if it was good or bad. Um, but I will say this: it was random as shit. That was a random as fuck ending to what I expected to come out of this whole steel cage situation. Was John Moxley was going to win by some weird way. Samoa Joe wasn't winning the world championship. And like you knew the Death Riders were going to get involved. Wheeler Yuta gets chucked through a table by Powerhouse Hobbs. Willow Nightingale, the newly re-signed to Willow Nightingale, gets involved. And so then, basically what happens is Gabe Kidd from New Japan Pro Wrestling, who the average audience may not know, but he was Kenny Omega's comeback opponent. So I guess there's some meaning to this, but it just seems sort of weird, especially with the way the rest of this segment played out. But Gabe Kidd hands the briefcase, slides it through the cage to John Moxley. Amidst all the chaos, John Moxley just wins. Okay. I mean, that was certainly a decision. I'm not ready to say it's a good or bad decision, but chaos, fun, excitement, fun. So cool. And then what transpired afterwards, the Young Bucks come out, Swerve Strickland comes out, and we set up the stage for Anarchy in the Arena in Phoenix, which has now become a staple of this show since Stadium Stampede was no longer a thing. So since 2022, they have done Anarchy in the Arena, and I would assume that this is going to be the main event of Double or Nothing. Even if I would kind of rather see a world championship match or something in that spot. Maybe they throw Hangman and Ospreay in, but we'll see. It's just the last 2 years of this stipulation show that we've kind of grown really just like fatigued from it, much like Forbidden Door. Anarchy in the Arena. Listen, I understand that you need a chaotic stipulation to make something important, but now that AEW has so many different specialty stipulations that you have to hold out, and then they've done the eliminator thing to death. They've done the gauntlet match, the gauntlet match or whatever, casino gauntlet. They've done that to death. So now they're doing Anarchy in the Arena, which is fine the way that they've set it up. And on some level, some of these people who have interacted make some sense. But Gabe Kidd? Really? Gabe Kidd? And look, I'm not advocating for Jack Perry. Jack Perry made a lot more sense to come back into this scenario, given his history with Kenny Omega, and given his history with the Young Bucks, and given his history with just all the particulars involved. It just made a lot of sense for Jack Perry to be involved in this capacity. He was in the last Anarchy in the Arena last year with the Young Bucks and the Elite, with Okada and everybody. Like, Gabe Kidd just feels really odd. That was what I'll say this, man. Like, it was the whole sequence was random. Might have been the most random ending to a world title match that I've ever seen. Admittedly, seeing Gabe Kidd on North American television, the guy's very entertaining. He doesn't really give a shit, and it's going to be a good opportunity for him to be put into the spotlight. But to throw him in to this big match that's probably going to main event a pay-per-view, just it screams of, hey, they panicked because Pac was not going to be available. Pac obviously has been hurt again, unfortunately, and they needed to throw somebody into the fire. But why not Jack Perry? Like I said, it's not a great option, but at least from that perspective, it would have made some sense. So I don't think this was good or bad. It was incredibly random. It was really just out of nowhere. And especially when you're doing it literally 11 days before you have a pay-per-view. That was my whole issue with the way that this whole thing was set up after post Dynasty. Good for Samoa Joe. He had a nice showing in the cage. It was a fine match. Probably, this isn't saying much because John Moxley's title run has been dog shit. That was probably one of John Moxley's best matches of this iteration in this title run. the Swerve Strickland match was okay with the shit finish. But yeah, I can always count on Samoa Joe. That guy's so fucking cool. And um, but yeah, the chaos at ringside, you knew it was gonna come. It was just the typical, um schmoz of a run in with the Death Riders and everything that happened there. So that was cool. And like I said, it was a fine match. It just had a really, really odd and really just strange random ending that I don't really know what it leads to, because what does here's my thing with how this whole thing is being set up. If you're just bringing in Gabe Kidd to basically be involved in this and then just go back to New Japan, that's not what this should be. If you're going to bring somebody who, yes, he had Kenny Omega's return match, make this mean something. And I don't really have a ton of faith in AEW to make this matter, because that's my whole issue with this thing. If you're not going to do something from a storyline perspective that makes sense, like bringing back Jack Perry, which, like I said, makes a ton of sense given the way that this thing is played out and just the storyline and the ties that he has to the Elite, the ties that he has to Omega, all this shit that's been going on. And then it's Gabe Kidd, because hey, like, why is Gabe Kidd costing John Moxley the championship? Like, if anything, Gabe Kidd should be interacting with Kenny Omega and leading into this whole schmaz. Like, him costing John Moxley the world title, it doesn't really connect to me. Again, I don't think that that's necessarily good or bad. I'm leaning more towards the bad side because this feels somewhat kind of desperate because they don't have anything. That, which also leads into my other problem with this. You're bringing in a New Japan star to be in your main event of your show. You're not bringing in an AEW guy, unless there's something I don't know about Gabe Kidd that he actually signed an AEW contract. But the fact that you brought that guy in when you have a guy ready-made in your company that makes sense in this storyline and he's not involved in this, that just doesn't sit right with me. Again, chaotic finish, fun main event match, very predictable ending, very predictable setup for Double or Nothing. We all knew that this was going to happen, but this is right on par with at least last year was AEW versus, New Elite. This year, it's like, what the hell is this? It's like, okay, Young Bucks are trying to get in the good graces of Moxley, and it's the Young Bucks and the Death Riders working together with Gabe Kidd, who I guess is an honorary Death Rider. And then you've got Swerve Strickland and his band of guys who just hate the Death Riders and who are feuding with him. Leave out the fact that Osprey and Hangman are not involved in this at all. So, I mean, it's because they're fighting in the Owen Cup final. But yeah, this was just odd. This was really, really odd, really, really strange. And I won't say that it's bad. I think it's interesting, but I don't have a ton of faith that AEW is really going to utilize it to their advantage, because you could potentially, doing stuff with a partnership that you have with New Japan Pro Wrestling to maybe, make Kid feel good. But all this feels like is he's just getting thrown in there to be a part of this because you didn't have a better option, which in my opinion, you actually did. It wasn't a much better one, but you had one in house. And just really bizarre. So that's really my take on the whole main event angle. We'll have some other videos on Dynamite. Not, like I said, not a terrible show, but it just doesn't feel like 11 days out from a pay-per-view that there's any sort of urgency. Like they added 2 matches here because now you've added effectively, and they're probably going to add a 5th match. We got to talk about NJFs at some point, but yeah, the way they added some matches to this, it just does not feel like a big deal. And this is the flagship, one of the first show that AEW ever did. 6 years to the day. It just does not feel that big. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. I will see you guys soon. Bye-bye.